let's talk about some lease option deals. Okay, so in November of 2013, I found out about lease options. I went to a little mini boot camp in Knoxville that the local RIA was putting on, and it was $75 to go. I told Victor Jernigan, who was the president of the RIA, still is the president of the RIA, that I didn't have the money and I didn't want to put out the money if I didn't have it because I was busy flipping these houses and all this stuff. And Victor told me that, he said, Whitney, I want you to go to this. You pay $75, and if you don't learn $75 worth of information from this lease option little thing that we're doing, I'll give you your money back. And I was like, fine, old man. I'll get my money back and learn a little bit of nothing. So I went. I was on my way to this little real estate thing, and it was 2 Thursdays in November, and I was able to go to the first one. I already told Victor I couldn't go to the second one, which is a totally different story. And I told him that I could go to the first one, but on my way, like I was getting ready to leave work, and one of the trucks had a wreck. It was raining that day. It was cold. It was November. One of the trucks had a wreck, and I had to go work the wreck. And honestly, guys, there was a little part of me standing out on the side of the road at the wreck, dealing with the cops and writing up the insurance information and doing all that stuff. There was a little part of me that just said, you know what, F it. I'm going to go home. It's cold. I'm wet. It's raining. I don't feel like going to this real estate thing. And I almost just chucked $75 out the window, but I didn't. I showed up late, ran in, soaked to the bone, cold. And if you show up late to something, you have to sit in the front, right? Because that's the only seats that are available. So I showed up about 15 or 20 minutes late, and Bruce Barrett was giving this presentation. He was already into his presentation by the time I got there, and he was talking about how he made, I don't even remember his numbers now, but he was talking about how he made, $15,000 or $20,000 on a house that he had a lease option on, that he didn't flip, he didn't sink a bunch of money in, and he did it in like 2 weeks. And he was working out in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He had a regular 9-to-5, and then he just made an extra 15 or 20 whenever he felt like it on the side with lease options. And I was like, holy crap, you didn't have to stand out in the rain. You made as much as I did in like almost a year, and you didn't have to flip it. You didn't have to touch it. Like, oh my gosh, I love lease options. I have to know more. So another 15 or 20 minutes went by, and I'm sitting in here listening to Bruce, listening to him explain all these deals and these situations that had happened, and I was just blown away. And somebody asked a question like, oh my gosh, how did you learn this stuff? Like, how do you know this stuff? And he mentioned that he had been to one of Ron LeGrand's boot camps. And I was like, Ron LeGrand, Google Ron LeGrand. And I found out that Ron LeGrand was having another boot camp, the last one of the year, in December in Jacksonville, Florida. It was in just a couple weeks, and right there, sitting in the class, I decided that I had to go listen to Ron LeGrand. I had to figure out who this guy was, and I put $3,000 on my credit card that night in this lease option training. Like, I didn't have $75 to commit to 2 nights in Knoxville, but I just found $3,000 on my credit card so that I could go to Florida and spend a weekend listening to some guy teach me more about how to do lease options. So don't tell me you don't have the money. It's really that you don't have the desire. When you have the desire, when you want to do something, when you know, oh my gosh, this is the way, then you can make it happen. You will find the money to figure out how to make more money. I did. Let me tell you real quick while we're on it, though. I told Victor that I could only go to the first night, the first Thursday that they were teaching lease options in Knoxville, because the second Thursday I was going to be in Baltimore with my boyfriend, and it was my birthday weekend, and I just knew, not Baltimore, Boston. We were going to Boston. I just knew that when we were in Boston for my birthday with my boyfriend, that he was going to propose, and I was going to come back with a fiance. And so I skipped the second night of lease option training in Knoxville to go to Boston because we already had it planned. to do my birthday trip with my boyfriend, and we went, and Boston was fun, and then we ended up going to Maine for a couple days, and we stayed in this beautiful bed and breakfast, like out on the water in Maine, in Kennebunkport, which is this sleepy little town in Maine, absolutely beautiful. And on the last night, we're celebrating my birthday, and we go out for this beautiful dinner, and since we're in Maine in November, it's like snowing real softly on the way home, and it's just so romantic, and we'd had at least a bottle of wine, and so I was like, feeling the vibes, and we're on this romantic trip, and I just knew he's gonna propose, and I'm like really, really excited, but not trying to be excited. And we get back to the bed and breakfast, and he didn't propose on this sweet little 2-block walk home. And then we go in and we sit down in like the fireplace room, and we're just kind of hanging out, and I'm like, okay, this is it. And then he's like, all right, well, I guess we should go upstairs and pack so we can leave in the morning. And I was like, he's not going to propose. That son of a bitch. So I go upstairs and I'm just packing. He's like, God, what's wrong with you? I'm like, nothing, I'm fine. And he didn't propose. Didn't even think about it. Hadn't even started looking at rings. Wasn't even thinking about getting married. And good thing was I didn't tell all my friends that I was getting engaged that weekend. That would have been embarrassing. But I did, in my crazy girl, pretty drunk brain, cuss him out and tell him that I skipped a night of lease options in Knoxville to come on this trip so you could propose, and you don't even have the decency to ask me to marry you, asshole. Like, I can still remember this in my head. I can't remember squat, but I very clearly remember cussing him in my head because I skipped learning about lease options, which was clearly going to be my new livelihood, just to come on this trip to celebrate my birthday in Boston so you could propose, and you didn't, jerk. So we were together for another year, and Jason was not very supportive of my real estate career, but we were together for another year before I even told him that I thought he was going to propose. Like, that's how crazy my girl brain works. I was thinking he was going to propose, and I didn't even tell him that he was supposed to be proposing. So he would, if he was here, he would tell you to check in with your girl and make sure she doesn't have some time clock that she's working on. Make sure you communicate thoroughly together. All right, but I'll tell you about my first deal on the next video.